Hello, this is Fahri Ahmed. I'm presenting my research paper on the effects of binge-watching motives on traditional television viewers in Malaysia. I'm presenting on behalf of myself and Dr. Hasrina. If you have any questions, you can shoot it here or send me an email in this email address. Okay, let's get started. So the research background. Binge watching in the past decade has been increasingly popular around the world, and with introduction of streaming services like Netflix and Hulu, people are actually changing the way they watch traditional television and leaning more towards binge watching. So, this research paper aims to study the motives of binge watching for Malaysian and whether the time spent on binge watching has a significant negative impact on television viewership in Malaysia. Um, the significance of this research is it has already been very popular in European and American market, and it has penetrated the Asian market as well. So eventually it would affect the television viewers in Malaysian landscape. It just The research would just help to know to what extent it is already affecting the Malaysian television viewership. It would help the television networks and the content producers to understand the extent to which television viewing is shifting towards binge watching, and it would also help external parties such as marketers, mass communication and advertisers to promote their brands better that suit the emerging target market of binge watchers. The research objectives are to identify what motivates people to binge watch, the relationship between motives and binge watching, and to observe how binge watching is impacting Malaysian appointment television viewership. There are three research questions which would find the answers for this research. They are: to what extent Malaysian viewers are binge watching? What motivates Malaysian viewers to binge watch? To what extent the time spent on binge watching is affecting television viewers in Malaysia? Okay, so literature review. The literature review actually backs up the significance of this research. So previously, television channels had the full control of what to broadcast and what people should see to consume their entertainment. In Malaysia, national TV stations such as TV3, Channel 9 were primary source of broadcasted shows. Then came the private satellite TV stations like Astro. But with advanced technology and introduction of binge-watching streaming shows, now people have the full control of watching entertainment anytime, anywhere, in any type of these devices such as phone and laptop. So this newfound control is said to be threatening television viewership extensively, as per the research of Shimlowski. So, and his research evidence is also supported by a report from the Star, which says that Malaysia is actually one of the top ranked binge watchers in Asia. That means more people are binge watching in Malaysia, and this research would find what motivates Malaysians to binge watch and whether these are negatively significantly impacting television viewership in Malaysia. To choose the motives of binge watching, this research selected social influence, enjoyment, escape, stress relief, freedom of watching, and accessibility as the motives of binge watching. The conceptual framework for the research used is uses and gratification, as it has been in use for the last 50 years to investigate any emerging media and to study the behavior and motivations of people behind using that media. To conceptualize the variables, this research conducted the study in two parts. In the first step, it conducted a multiple regression analysis to establish whether there is a significant relationship between the motives of binge watching and the time spent on binge watching. And in the second step, a linear regression analysis was conducted to establish the relationship between the time spent on binge watching and the time spent on traditional television viewership in Malaysian. Based on the conceptual framework, the hypothesis is formed as follows. And the method used for the research is quantitative analysis by way of survey questionnaire. The sample size for this study was 200, and the sample method was convenient sampling, as it was a much faster and easier way to collect data from all types of demographics with convenience. To operationalize the variables, the survey questions had 24 questions that were divided into 5 different parts to collect the data, to collect the necessary data. Part A covered demographic information, Part B covered patterns of binge watching, Part C covered motivations of binge watching, Part D covered the time spent on binge watching, and Part E, lastly, it covered the time spent on traditional television viewing in Malaysia. Um, the research findings were based on the data collected from 229 respondents, which over exceed our target data collection sample of 200. The demographics for this research showed that most of the respondents who participated to emulate the findings of this research were females within the age group of 25 to 34 of Chinese ethnicity. They are stable income earners, married and settled with family and friends near the city center. Um, the part B answers the research question 1. To what extent Malaysian viewers are binge watching? The findings actually reflect that Malaysians are quite accustomed to binge watching, and they are even paying to streaming services such as Netflix to watch their favorite shows and movies. They also have a good grasp of what binge watching is. Malaysians' perception of binge watching is if someone watches 5 consecutive episodes of 15 to 30 minutes length. So it can be said that binge watching is pretty much uh, established in Malaysia. So, before we discuss the relationship between the motivations of binge watching and the time spent of binge watching, let's see the respondents' reaction on the motivations of binge watching individually. When it comes to social influence, Malaysians do not agree or are mostly neutral to the fact that social influence motivates them to binge watch. However, in case of enjoyment, most respondents say that they agree that enjoyment is a motivator that leads them to binge watch. They feel happy, relaxed, and it's fun to binge watch. For escape also, the mean of 3.73 reveals that Malaysians agree that escape is one of the motivators for them to binge watch. Stress relief similarly is with a mean of 3.86 shows that Malaysians agree that uh, stress relief is a motivator of binge watching because it takes their mind off things, it clears their mind and takes them away from worries and problems. Freedom of watching, on the other hand, has a mean of 3.21. That means it shows that Malaysians are mostly neutral to the fact that freedom of watching is a motivator for them for binge watching. As for accessibility, with a mean of 3.54, most respondents agree that yes, accessibility is one of the motivators for them to binge watch. So now, to establish the relationship between the motives of binge watching and the time spent of binge watching, multiple regression analysis was conducted. It found that 4 out of the 6 motivations were significantly related to the time spent on binge watching in Malaysia. In fact, escape and accessibility are the positive, significant influencer for time spent on binge watching in Malaysia. Escape having the highest beta coefficient among other independent variables, meaning that most Malaysians binge watch to escape maybe from their worries or problems. The second highest positive beta coefficient being accessibility. However, in case of social influence and freedom of watching, it is revealed that they actually are negatively related to the time spent on binge watching. This multiple regression model explains 62.2% of the changes in the time spent on binge watching, and says that it is caused by the motivations of binge watching in Malaysia. Okay, so then let's discuss the relationship between the time spent on binge watching in Malaysia and the time spent on traditional television viewership in Malaysia. The results actually found that yes, the more time Malaysians spent on binge watching, the less time they will be spending time on traditional television viewing in Malaysia, as binge watching has a significantly negative relationship to traditional television viewing in Malaysia, with a beta coefficient of negative 0.571. It also explained the changes of the time spent in traditional television viewing by 32.6%, which is quite significant, meaning one third of the reason for people not watching television can be because of binge watching. Okay, so further elaborating the discussion, it can be concluded that people that people in Malaysia are binge watching both because of escape and accessibility. The more time the more they are getting the escape or the accessibility aspect of binge watching, the more time they're spending on the time spent on on the time spent on binge watching. And overall, the time spent on binge watching is negatively impacting the traditional television viewing in Malaysia. So Malaysian should be aware that the changing dynamics would eventually cause the shifting from traditional television to binge watching. As a result, the brand marketers, advertisers, and mass communication should prepare for the future shift of binge watching in Malaysia and prepare better on how to promote their brands when television viewership starts declining due to the increase in binge watching. Thank you for your time and consideration. Thank you and have a good day.